Hey guys, it's that time of the year again, Christmas time, where I take a look back at some of the games I had as a child. Some of them were great, but some of them were absolutely garbage. That's right, we're going to be taking a look back at some of the games I got for the holidays that were so bad, they absolutely ruined Christmas.
Good luck.
So the first game we're going to be looking at on my Christmas shit list, I guess, should be no surprise to anybody. In fact, at one point, I told everybody in another video that this was the worst game I owned growing up. A couple of years back, I did a video where I said Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2 was the worst game I owned growing up. I think I may have just had my Nest goggles on that day and couldn't see past the system because it's not the worst game I owned growing up. No, trust me, that's coming later, and it's not even that bad of a game, but as a kid, man oh man, did I regret getting this under the Christmas tree. Before we say anything else, yes, that is Fabio on the cover. You know, I can't believe it's not Butter Fabio. I'm not exactly sure how this ended up under the tree for me that faded Christmas, as I'm a little older now and my memory is a little foggy on the subject, but I have two schools of thought on the matter. One is that my mother was huge into Harlequin romance novels, which Fabio appeared on quite regularly, and I think she may have had a little crush on him and decided of her own accord to buy me the game. My second theory, and probably the real one, was that this game was heavily advertised during WWF Superstars when I was a kid, and the commercial was really cool, so I may have asked for it. No matter what the reason, I ended up getting Iron Sword for Christmas without renting it first or even playing the first Wizards and Warriors game beforehand, and I was taken aback by what the game was. The intro scene starts up with some really jarring NES music that is somehow both cool and assaulting to the ears. If you let the intro screen sit there for a while, the story will roll across. It's just text, and as a kid, I had zero interest in reading this or understanding the backstory. It would have meant the world to see some pictures or cutscenes or something to explain the story, but no, we just got text. When you start playing, you see your character, and he certainly isn't the buff barbarian you saw in the game box. No, he is just a weird looking dude in a suit of armor. To top that off, he has the smallest sword, and even playing today, I question if it makes any contact with the enemies of the game. Thankfully, there is a sword upgrade in the first level that you can find that improves your sword length and attack range, but personally, it's not like a night and day experience and doesn't fix the combat. I have had this game in my collection for 30 years and still have no idea how to attack an enemy, so I just jump around like an idiot, swinging my sword, and sometimes I make contact, and sometimes I don't. The real gripe I had with this game when starting was the jumping. My god, was this first stage awful. The jumping mechanic itself just feels off, and you have to experience it yourself to see what I mean. On top of the weird jump, the entire first stage revolves around climbing a mountain while jumping from platform to platform. During your jump, if you make contact with an enemy, whether positive or negative, it will affect your jump, and you will miss a lot of your desired targets. Then we add in the puzzle nature of the mountain and the added difficulty of the sliding platforms, and if you don't know what you are doing, your entire progression up the mountain will be halted in an instant, and you will slide out of your control all the way back down to the beginning of the mountain. Once you make it to the top, you better hope that you found the egg first, or it's right back down to the beginning of the mountain again to find it. It's maybe the one time where those slides will come in handy. With the egg in tow, the bird will take you to the next stage, which doubles down on the awkward jumping with a trampoline effect on these clouds, which if you thought the first stage was awkward, get ready to have your mind expanded in awfulness. 30 years, and this is as far as I have ever gotten in this game, and while I do enjoy it more now as an adult playing it, as a kid, I thought this was torture. Okay, the last time I said anything negative about Ecco the Dolphin, I had an online fan community for the game assault me, so I'm going to be careful here. Is Ecco the Dolphin a bad game? No. Is it for me? No. And I will tell you what I personally do not like about it, and why it was a disappointment when I got it for Christmas. No stones thrown? Good. I have said many times that I grew up a Nintendo kid and a late adopter to the Sega Genesis. In fact, we never even got the Model 1 Genesis. No, we ended up with the Model 2, and the bundle we got actually came with two games. One was the very, very good Sonic 2, and the other was Ecco the Dolphin, and believe it or not, I was so freaking excited for this game. It's at this point that I admit it was that I was let down by this game, that it is probably for that very reason I have never been able to appreciate it. What was my issue with Ecco the Dolphin? Well, where was the blast processing? That's a real thing, right? The big selling point for the Genesis with us kids was the speed and arcade style of the games on the Genesis, and well, where was this with Ecco the Dolphin? In the commercials, a lot of time went into showing Ecco flying above the water and doing flips, and it kinda misrepresented the game to me, I guess. Little did I know that the game wasn't a fast-paced, typical platformer featuring a dolphin, but a maze-based game that focused more on puzzle solving and air management than anything else. And aliens later on for some reason, I am told, but I have never gotten far enough myself to confirm or deny that. Before we go down a deep hole, let's get back to the point I was making. It just wasn't what I was looking for, and I have a hard time enjoying it. I mean, I personally am a claustrophobic person, so the concept of running out of air freaks me out. Also, at that age, and truth be told even today, I play games to escape and have fun, and this game does the exact opposite for me. It stresses me right the hell out. In fact, I think it was designed to do just that. First, let's consider the music. While most underwater stages in video games feature either an easy, relaxing track, with it, or a fun, upbeat track, this is very slow, and sharp at points, which adds to the creepiness of the game, and constantly puts me at a state of unease. I am stressed out, and I don't have enough health. I'm lost in a maze underwater, and running out of air. The sharp twang is the last thing I need right now. You add that soundtrack with all the elements I just discussed, and it seems like it's intentionally trying to psych you out. Anyways, I'm getting off track here. I started talking about the speed of the game, and you can in fact do a dash to help you jump out of the water and attack, but it usually isn't the best idea to dash. Usually you are in a narrow corridor, and dashing can lead to you getting stuck or running into sharp coral. In fact, even when you are in an open space, you can run into an enemy with your dash and still end up hurt. You see, the dash is the attack mechanic, but it's also a little sensitive, as you have to hit enemies and obstacles just the right way to avoid losing health. It's frustrating, and I just want to go fast in this game, but really, it's a mechanic that has to be used sparingly and in the right situation. So get ready for a lot of slow swimming. I mean really slow in sections, like where you have to get past the giant octopus, and you have to sneak past him so slowly. And it's a narrow pass too, as the sharp coral is right there on the other side of him, and I can never seem to do this part right. It's so frustrating that in a game where you are running out of oxygen and have to rush to get more, it punishes you for going fast, and on the Sega Genesis too, the home of blast processing. I will say that of all the games I am going to talk about today, this is the one I have spent the most time with and tried to enjoy. I have a lot of respect for what the game is, but sadly I've just never been able to get some form of enjoyment out of it, and would have rather received another game with my new Sega Genesis Model 2 that Christmas morning. And here is my least favorite game growing up, and without a doubt, my biggest regret when filling out my Christmas list to Santa for video games ever, Batman Forever. Man oh man, where do I even start here? Well, I had never played it before, and I was a big fan of Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo already, so I figured the sequel would be just as good, if not better, plus it had those awesome new digitized graphics so the characters would look super real life, which was clearly the future of gaming back then. Also, take into consideration, I had never played a bad Batman game up to this point on a Nintendo system, so this would clearly be a can't miss, right? Well, I have never been so goddamn wrong ever, and I hate the fact that Santa had to spend like $100 to get this heap of shit for me, and considering inflation, that is like $350 nowadays. Anyways, it was not at all like Batman Returns, and despite the fact I had rented it to death, at least I would have enjoyed that game. The selling point obviously was the digitized graphics, reminiscent with Mortal Kombat, and while in theory it should have been cool and looked great, it actually looked terrible. The problem is really the color scheme, and the game is just so damn dark and bland. On top of that, they made some very strange decisions when it came to level design, like putting massive objects in the foreground that at times obscure your view, and you can't see if there is a platform that you need to jump up to or drop down to. Probably the most frustrating piece of this is that it can sometimes hide an enemy, and you are getting hit by someone that you don't even realize is there. Next is that they incorporated the Mortal Kombat character design, but they sure as hell did not need to incorporate the controls as well. This game is a chore to control, and that is giving it credit. First off, we have to mention the obligatory up the jump, and somehow it gets worse from here. If you have played Mortal Kombat, you know how the fighting works, but it doesn't translate to an action brawler as well as you would think, although I do enjoy uppercutting these fools. Toasty! Any beat 'em up can seem repetitive, but with these controls, man, this is really repetitive. Next is the concept of the grappling hook and the multiple platforms. I mentioned earlier how hard it was to see if you needed to go up or down in a level. Well, this game is the epitome of what the hell am I supposed to do? As you progress through a level, you will seemingly come to a point where you cannot progress. If you look closely, you can see above your head that the ceiling is open, and you in theory should be able to grapple up to the next stage. In theory, because getting that to work is a nightmare. You have to press select and up, but the problem is you have to hit it just right. If you hit up too soon, you jump, and if you hit select too soon, you just throw your grapple. After attempt 8,000, you finally grapple up, and talk about ridiculously slow. It's like watching an old man ease into a tepid bath. Going down a level isn't a picnic either, as I'm still not 100% sure how you do this, but I think it's some combination of down and the right trigger. Who knows, just press all the damn buttons until something happens. Not to mention that at some points, because of the obstructive view, there is zero indication that you have to either go up or down, so when stuck, just randomly start hitting buttons and hope for the best. In fact, that's a pretty good way to sum up this whole game. Last but not least, let's talk about the loading from a cartridge. I mean, is this real life? In this capture session, I probably spent just as much time playing the game as I did waiting for it to load from stage to stage. If you had any question of whether this affected the fast-paced game, well, it actually fits the dynamic perfectly. It's a slow slog to play with a heap of control issues, odd graphical choices that obstruct the core gameplay, and last but not least, so much loading. So much goddamn loading. Truly, you have to play this game to understand how bad it really is. I cannot tell you how much I regret asking for this game for Christmas, and how disappointed I was that fateful Christmas morning when I finally experienced Batman Forever on the Super Nintendo. So guys, thank you very much for joining me today and taking a look back at some of the video games I got as presents over the years that absolutely ruined Christmas. I'm sure that a lot of people watching this video had very similar experiences growing up, and I would love to hear them. Guys, let me know down in the comments below, through Facebook, whatever way you want to do it. What are some of the games that you got as presents for Christmas over the years that absolutely ruined the day? Were just so terrible and so bad. I'd love to hear. And share our experiences as gamers. That's kind of what YouTube is for sometimes. Anyways, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. And so from my family to yours, have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Right, kiddo? See you guys. Hey there! Thank you for making it to the very end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, why don't you check out one of the other videos shown here? If you really enjoyed the video, you can even subscribe to my YouTube channel. And of course, if you really enjoyed the video, feel free to check out my Patreon. It would be appreciated.